Hey folks, in this video I wanted to do my comparison on the M2 Pro versus the Zephyrus G15. I'd previously made the M2 MacBook Air comparison, and so I wanted to do an updated one. So it's going to be a similar methodology to what you saw before. This time I have a 4K footage running multicam with screen recorded from OBS. That is what was tested, and then in the actual video editing section of this video, it's all just from the what you're seeing right now, which is the iPhone. So let's get into the methodology. So for those not familiar with how I've been recording these videos, it is done in OBS, running screen recording at 4K 30 FPS per second. And then I recorded two iPhone clips at running at 4K 30 FPS that were simply airdropped to the MacBook. So a simple enough workflow to make these videos you've been watching. So that's pretty much it. So the Windows one was similar methodology. OBS records 4K footage you're seeing here at 30 FPS, and then the iPhone, sorry, is also recording, which is going to be the methodology for testing these two devices. And then what some people don't actually know about, and they're like, oh, like AirDrop is the way, is that you could actually use VLC Player to share a local network of your iPhone, and it downloads the videos pretty quickly, which is basically what you're seeing on screen. So that's how I got the videos over it. I think as a video creator, working with either devices on Windows or Apple, you should know these workflows. Of course, a lot of people are going to be using Sony's DSLRs and just doing SD cards. But if you're just looking to be like a lightweight video creator, you could just use an iPhone, and this is pretty much the way to make some of this content. So it could be helpful for people who maybe are stuck thinking that they need DSLRs to make YouTube videos or want to be content creators. Just start with what you have, and hopefully this encourages you to kind of make your first videos. So now to the timeline comparison. So this was recorded on an iPhone at 4K, and then I zoomed in so you could kind of get a better look at what's happening. So basically, if you're not familiar with DaVinci Resolve, you can make a multicam kind of wrapper. And so I have these three 4K footage files that I created, and they're not necessarily synced because they're kind of different points in time, but it does the analysis anyways and says auto sync failed, and then just double checking that it worked and seeing how it works out. It places all three of them based on different various timelines or time lengths, and then I just simply drag them into a 4K timeline. So zooming out, I basically set up the Resolve to be the same exact thing so that you get a even comparison, drag the same files in. Of course, one file is an OBS recording from Windows and one is the OBS recording from the Mac, and theoretically they should have the same encoding types, though one uses the NVEC encoder from Windows and one uses OBS's implementation on Mac OS to do video recording. But basically I got them both set up so that it has the viewer on one side and the multicam set up on another side. And then let's just dive into kind of, this is in post, of course, my thoughts on editing this three angle 4K footage. So this is actually similar to what I talked about in my previous video with the M2 MacBook Air. The content plays well. I'm not going to zoom in too much so you can kind of see the differences live and not too much editing. But basically the RTX machine, the Windows machine that I'm using right now, there's about like 1 second to half a second delay when you click the footage versus when it starts rendering on screen. And then also if you're deciding, what clip to cut here, you can also see that I'm not sure that Cam 2, if it's like there or not. It was kind of confusing if it was loading in correctly or not, or if it was lagging. And so I'm not saying most editors make fast cuts like this and will just do like boom, boom, boom and click things, but it is something that has affected this machine. Whereas when I go to the MacBook Air, and I just literally just stopped testing it and just went, you could kind of, this is my observation. You guys could rewatch this section of the video or not. It's kind of like instantaneous. You click on the timeline on Resolve and it pops up, it renders all three multicam at the same time. Actually, in the beginning, I wasn't exactly sure how to set this up properly, but then it turns out that I didn't change the second viewer. See here, I'm kind of confused. So just putting my commentary on what was happening in the workflow. I typically, when I'm on Macs, edit on Final Cut, but when I'm on Windows, I edit on DaVinci Resolve. But once I finally got it set up, which is right now, you can compare it back maybe a minute to the video when I'm testing the Windows machine. It's like, to me, it's not a significant difference, but for people who like I feel like it could cause like a slight brain glucose energy, like waiting for the machine to render, waiting for it to pop up on your timeline. For me, it just seemed instantaneous on the M2 Pro. You just click it, it appears, you cut, it's instantaneously, and there's no like lag when pressing the space bar to start rendering. Where just, in my opinion, based on this plugged in too, the MacBook is not plugged in while the Zephyrus is plugged in, so that could also be a difference. I don't think most people are editing on laptops that aren't plugged in, but for the sake of this video and how I typically do my workflow, I do try to compare the differences in playing and not playing with the devices at the same time to see what the difference is. So I would say typically what I've noticed on this machine after making lots of videos on the Zephyrus, because that's my main machine that I kept, is that yes, the MacBook Pro is better at video timeline scrubbing, editing, and stuff of that nature. So a long ramble I've been going on there, but just wanted to put my commentary, and you could kind of, if you want to, mute this video and just look at the content yourself and come up with your own observations. So finally, the important factor here is when you're exporting it, I tried to click the buttons at the same time, but right off the bat, you could see, in my opinion, that the Zephyrus G15 on the right is exporting faster. And I'm just gonna put my commentary while you kind of watch it render. But basically it does end up doing it faster. And then I noticed on the right that the network or the video encoder on the right said auto, and it did use the NVIDIA, but I do actually a second export while the M2 Pro is still exporting. I'm able to finish the Zephyrus on the right and then literally change the render setting to be NVIDIA and then hit render again on the second one. And so it's almost like depending on people's workflows and how fast you need to get content out there, I think a dedicated GPU sometimes outbeats the M2 Pro, and especially in gaming and other graphical things that I've tested before in my M1 Max comparisons. So this is just something to consider. Honestly, I do want to keep this device. I'm actually on my last day of review before I could turn it in, since I got it 2 weeks ago. And like, it is a nice device. I actually prefer gaming, Dota 2 and League on the Zephyrus, but I'm trying to get out of gaming more. And it's just, the MacBook is a nice device that just seems, it loads websites better. Teams and WebEx doesn't lag when I screen share or someone's screen sharing or video sharing. It's just an overall, in my opinion, nicer experience where sometimes, like, to be honest with you guys, the Zephyrus on the right is actually, I have a little stand that I hold it onto because the fans turn on, it overheats, so I lift it up a little so that like the CPUs get better. But yeah, basically that is my take on this. And I actually did I'll put a slice in a video right now. I did unplug the machine and did another render and actually kept the same 1 minute render times. So that's just something to keep in mind if you guys are in the market. There are new, RTX 4000 laptops and reviews hitting the market right now. The embargo is out, so I might test some of those. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you haven't seen my previous one, it's the it's the MacBook Air one, where I also do a similar comparison. So see you guys in the next video. Peace.